clip you just saw is some deviant art, and in this case, I believe it is indeed deviant art. There is a site for artists to probably to meet other artists and exchange artwork and look at other people's artwork and display your artwork and maybe sell your artwork. And I wasn't going to DeviantArt, the site. I was looking for an image, and I googled the word face, F-A-C-E, and before too long I clicked on a couple of images, and for all the world it looked like I was in a den of pedophiles. Pedophiles. Now we're discussing programmable minds, and we're discussing artwork, and we're discussing pedophiles. An artist knows that the proportions of a child's body are different from those of an adult. Proportionally, a child has a larger head and a short, stocky body. And as the child grows, his body elongates more, grows larger, more so than his head. His head grows less in proportion to his body. So adults have a smaller head in proportion to their bodies. A pedophile may not understand this. In his attempt to create an image that he finds exciting, he might create a bizarre concoction by using Photoshop to paste a manufactured child's head onto the body of, perhaps it's an 18-year-old girl. Slow to develop, an 18-year-old girl, and so you can't say this is child pornography if it's an 18-year-old girl and you simply Photoshop a head onto this body. But it's right there at the line. It's right there at the line, and it probably gives the pedophiles a thrill. But most human beings are programmed automatically, without their choice, to be sexually active or to become sexually active. And as a result, we reproduce. All animals reproduce. Those animals who are successful at surviving long enough to reproduce viable offspring, that's the definition. I'm just now giving you my definition, are winners. Animals who live long enough to reproduce and produce viable offspring are what I call the winners. We are the children of the winners. We are the way we are because our ancestors did what they did, and as a result, they were successful according to the definition I just gave you. They lived long enough to reproduce and produce viable offspring. That's all that matters. If you produce a child and you come down with schizophrenia, well, schizophrenia remains a part of the gene pool. Or if you reproduce successfully and get your child off to a good start, and then you come down with cancer. Cancer, the ability or tendency or potential for cancer remains in the gene pool. But if you can't run fast enough to escape a predator, you don't survive, you don't produce offspring. Therefore, you're history. You're a fossil. What has this got to do with climate change? You notice I'm obsessed with climate change. A lot of my videos have to do with climate change. I believe that climate was a critical part in choosing the winners, according to the definition I just gave you. If the climate changed to a cold period, suppose you live near the equator and it's not terribly cold, but there's a lack of humidity in the air. There's more dust. Al Gore's ice core chart shows, if you look at the red line at the bottom of this chart, it shows that every time it gets cold, dust increases. So cold ice contains more dust than ice that formed from snow that fell during a warmer period. And this makes sense. When the planet is warmer, there's more precipitation, more liquid precipitation. The air is purified of dust from all this humidity and rainfall, so you find less dust in the snow. Less dust. The presence of this dust reminds me of arid conditions. Thousands of years of an arid climate, lack of rainfall, cool. You live near the equator. You don't have to deal with the ice. You live near the equator. Less rain over thousands of years will turn a forest into a grassland. Will turn a forest into grassland. If your ancestors got their food from trees and navigated in trees, and now over many generations there's less and less trees and they're smaller and further apart, whatever ancestor you had who could move from one tree across an open area to another tree, whether he walked or ran, would more likely escape from a predator such as a lion. Now this is hypothetical. I can't prove all this. But my theory is the ability to walk and run upright created human beings, and the climate was the pressure, was the driver. The climate produced you, according to my theory, because your ancestors, generation after generation of escaping from predators by being able to move quickly on two legs and to walk distances to gather food, their hands being free to carry the food home to feed children, allowed your ancestors to be, they weren't the winners, you're the winner. You are, well, they're the winners, you're the child, we are the children of the winners. And the winners, W-I-N-N-E-R-S, were those who lived long enough to reproduce and create viable offspring. Now, in the process of becoming expert walkers and runners on two legs, bone structure changed slowly over thousands of generations. Wide hips interfere with the process of running and walking fast. Hips narrowed. Over many generations, your ancestors got narrower and narrower hips. And this creates a problem at childbirth time if your mother's pelvis is too restricted to deliver a child. Possibly she and the child are doomed. So the child had to escape from the womb somewhat early before it had fully developed. As a result, human beings are born underdeveloped, still in the process of developing, and they spend a great deal of time developing outside the womb. The maturity clock, the timing of genes that causes the body to mature from infant to an adult, the clock is slowed down. I'll have you know hastily that some monkeys, some infant monkeys tend to stand upright while their parents tend to knuckle walk. And their parents tend to climb trees, but the infants can stand upright and they have an opposing thumb. Here's what I mean by the opposing thumb. Monkeys don't have hands like we do. We can grasp with our hands. An infant monkey can grasp and hold onto mama. But as he grows older, his thumbs become useless and he uses his hands this way to climb trees. He doesn't use his opposable thumb to climb trees. So if the climate caused us to evolve toward a slow maturity scenario, we might be the descendants of ape-like creatures who simply refused to grow up. And this not only relates to climate, but it relates to human psychology and sociology. Why are some people more independent and others are less dependent? Why are some people more creative and imaginative and others are more practical? Probably as a species, we are animals slow to grow up. Sometimes you have to provide for a human child for years and years and years before he can provide for himself. And you know that the longer you provide for him, within reason, by giving him an education and continuing to feed him, the better his life will be. If he leaves home after he's 16 or 18 or 20, rather than 6 or 8 or 10, his life will be easier and better. So we tend to stay home longer. We take years and years and years to prepare for adulthood. We have retained some characteristics of juvenile apes. And I say, my theory is, we can debate this if you like. My theory is that the climate was the pressure that caused these apes to slow down their developmental period, remain somewhat juvenile, retain the ability to stand upright, to retain the opposable thumbs, which allows us to use keyboards and play the piano. Could very well be, again, that we are the children of ape-like creatures, humanoid, not ape-like creatures, but humanoid, human-like creatures that decided to extend their childhood, decided. Actually, circumstances decided it. Nature selected these behaviors. Nature selected our bodies. And nature selected our brains. Not consciously, because nature is not conscious. Nature is not intentional. We weren't meant to be here, but we're here. And I say that is amazing.